Hi, welcome to Minelab's instructional video on the GP3000. Minelab are extremely proud of the new technology and features incorporated in this new machine. This video is designed so that you'll get the best use out of these new functions and be able to use them in the field. My name's Doug Stone. I've been chasing gold for over 30 years, including working with the Department of Mines Victoria as a field geologist and editor of publications. I was around when the first detectors were introduced to Australia in the late 70s, early 80s, and had the pleasure of using them out in the field, and I soon realised that the people that succeeded in finding gold were those that really studied and persevered and learnt to use their machine well. Since that time, I've written numerous books and maps for the recreational fossicker to ensure that they get out and find some gold. We've also been running trips in Victoria initially, then to the Northern Territory, Central Australia and Western Australia, taking small groups of New Zealanders and Americans and locals out to really explore Australia's goldfields. This video is an advanced instruction video. Therefore, we presume that you've read Minelab's GP3000 User's Manual, which is an excellent publication and goes through in detail how the machine works. If you're really thoroughly read this, my instructions combined with this will ensure you're going to find gold. Assuming that you've read the written instruction manual and know how to basically switch it on and go, let's take a very brief look at the basic startup procedure. We'll start by setting all the switches to their normal positions set out in the Quick Start Easy reference on page 28 of the manual. On the front panel, set the All Metal Discrimination switch to All Metal, Soil switch to Normal, Coil switch to Double D, the Balance switch to Fixed, then turn the Level Adjust to 12 o'clock as a starting point. On the back panel, turn Boost to Normal, Signal to Halfway, Tone to Halfway, and Volume to full clockwise. Now we can turn the power switch on. Now we adjust the threshold so there is an audible background hum. Correctly setting the threshold is the key to finding small targets or large deep targets. If the threshold level is set too low, small targets will not break over the audible signal line. Setting the threshold level too high will cause small target signals to be lost in the background noise. The most effective setting is where the threshold creates a smooth, gentle hum, and both the large and small targets break the audible line. We now set the tone to suit your hearing. People often hear better in higher or lower tones, especially as we get older. Okay, now we're going to set the tuner on the GP3000. The tuner's designed to cut out any radio interference in the area we're going to work. So you rotate the coil to the point where you get the most interference. Hold it at that point and then down to your tune button, hit it, you'll get a single beep, and then you wait about a minute as it works through its system. There it is. We've got the 3 beeps and the detector's ready to go on and do our ground balancing. The last control to set is the ground balance, and this is one of the most important settings on the detector. As you can see over here, we have very highly mineralised ground with a typical ironstone tea and coffee. Over this side, we have decomposed bedrock. It's very mild looking, but it can be mineralised underneath. What we do, we simply pump the coil above the ground, and as we're doing that, we flick from fixed to tracking. You'll hear a very rapid 5-second change change until the signal settles right down. When there's no change in the signal, the detector is balanced and you simply flick it back to fixed and we commence our search. And I recommend that we search in fixed because the last setting is held and any slight variation or tiny target is picked up. You can search in tracking, but the automatic ground counselling will pick up all the little variations in mineralisation, so you have a little bit more background to contend with. It is important to understand that to operate your detector with maximum performance, always try to search in the fixed position. This is going to give you the best depth and sensitivity. You will have to pause and switch back to tracking to rebalance occasionally when you hear the ground changing. However, if the ground is changing a lot and you're having to rebalance every few steps, then remain in tracking, where the detector will automatically compensate for the changes as soon as they occur. Firstly, be aware that if you're searching in tracking and lift the coil off the ground, when either stepping over rocks, logs or walking to a new spot, you should always give the detector a few moments to rebalance before continuing your sweep. Best of all, switch into fixed and then back into tracking to re-ground balance the detector. Remember, the detector was still balancing while you had the coil off the ground. Secondly, if you are searching in tracking, always switch into fixed to pinpoint your target. More about that later. We've just covered the basic settings to get you up and running with your new GP3000. Now we're going to go through the advanced techniques so that you can see by changing some of these settings how you will improve the potential of the machine and get your best out of this marvellous piece of technology. The discriminator on the GP3000 can distinguish between the ferrous rubbish and the valuable non-ferrous items. But you've got to be careful because many of our relics are ferrous. So this wonderful little Belgian pistol of the 1880s would have been blanked out and you would have missed it. To operate your detector in the discriminate mode, you must switch the iron discriminate switch from all metal to discriminate. The discriminator works by cutting the signal over ferrous junk and over the non-ferrous valuable items like this gold nugget, the signal is always clear and precise. Signal intensity is very important when accurately discriminating a target. Ferrous rubbish with a weak signal will actually be interpreted as a valuable non-ferrous item. It's only as you get closer to the target and the intensity increases that you'll have the blanking out and the accurate discrimination. Another way to go about it is to scan over the target in several directions. In one direction, you could get the distinct blanking. If that doesn't occur, go around at 90 degrees and try it in the other direction, and you'll get positive discrimination. The level adjust knob has two effects. It controls the ground balance if you're operating in the tracking, and the amount of discrimination if you are searching in the discrimination mode. Let's look at them separately. With the level adjust control set fully anti-clockwise, the discrimination is cautious. Only blanking on ferrous items and any doubtful targets are identified as non-ferrous and valuable. As the control is turned further clockwise, it becomes less cautious and identifies all ferrous objects as ferrous, but occasionally a non-ferrous item may also be blanked out. The danger in using the level adjust in a more clockwise direction is if a small gold nugget is either coated or encased in ironstone. It could be identified as ferrous. Note, if you are searching in the all-metal position, the level adjust is only affecting the ground balance while tracking. The first thing to understand if searching in fixed is that the level adjust control does not affect the ground balance. However, if you are working in tracking, it does. When searching in tracking, the automatic ground balance is readjusting all the time for changes in mineralisation. So that a nugget is not ground balanced out, the GP3000 stops the tracking function each time a target is located. The level adjust control decides which signal is recognised as a target and not simply a mineral change, pausing the tracking mode for one and not the other. With the level adjust control set fully anti-clockwise, the ground balance will be working most efficiently, tracking on soil changes and most hot rocks. As the control is turned further clockwise, it becomes more cautious and pauses on suspect targets. Therefore, in this position, it can be noisier to operate on hot ground. In highly mineralised ground, where there is a lot of mineral variation, the knob should be set to the anti-clockwise position. This will allow the tracking to be most effective for the change in mineral effects and will reduce the amount of false signals. However, very weak targets may be cancelled out, so listen hard for that faint signal and switch immediately to fixed to pinpoint and recover the target. In lightly mineralised ground, you will preferably be searching in fixed, so the level adjust has no effect. But if you're in tracking, the control can be turned towards the clockwise position so that weak target signals are not confused with mineralisation. Let's put these two effects together. It controls the signal strength required to pause the tracking mode. It determines the conductivity level required to identify a target as ferrous or non-ferrous. To look at them together, we could show it in this way. If we have discrimination working while searching in tracking and the level adjust knob in the anti-clockwise position, the ground balance is going to be working at its optimum level. This will suit heavily mineralised ground, but care needs to be taken that faint signals are not cancelled out. In this position, the discriminator is at its most cautious. As the control is turned further clockwise, the ground balance will be paused on more signals and the discriminator will work to a greater depth and identify more targets as being ferrous.